Today on the Commanders Report, we've got a 2024 season preview put out by ESPN earlier this week, breaking down everything that they think that Commanders fans need to know about this season and this team heading into the year. The topics that will be discussed on today's video and in this article: the biggest strength for the Washington Commanders, their biggest weakness. Shout out to producer Joey for the awesome graphics there. The X factor for 2024, and then they have a surprising starting lineup projection here that I completely disagree with. We'll get into that at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. But here's the deal, guys. ESPN Plus, they make you pay $11 a month to see this content. That's absolutely ridiculous to us here at the Commanders Report, so we're going to give it to you guys 100% free. All right, we're going to give you this content from ESPN Plus 100% free, because that's what we do here on the Commanders Report. We give you guys free premium Commanders coverage every single day. Really do appreciate everybody that's already clicked that subscribe button. And for those of you that are already subscribed, I know that you guys know that we have the best Commanders content for free here on YouTube. So if you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet and you want to join our family, you want to become an expert on this football team, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. So now let's get into what ESPN thinks is this team's biggest strength, which is inside linebacker. We got a nice picture of Bobby Wagner there. Some very interesting stuff here from ESPN's Mike Clay, who had this to say about the Commanders' linebackers. Washington revamped its linebacker situation by adding every down players Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu during free agency. Wagner is entering his age 34 season, but he has shown no sign of drop-off, pacing the NFL with 183 tackles last season. The versatile Louvu is one of the only two players with 200-plus tackles and 12-plus sacks in the past 2 years. Former first-round pick Jayden Daniels, Mykal Walker, and rookie Jordan Magee add depth. So listen, man, I have no problem with the Washington Commanders linebacking depth. I think that's really good. But is it the biggest strength of this football team? If your biggest strength is your inside linebackers, your team is in big trouble, all right? That's all I'm going to say. But what I'll say is the biggest strength for this football team is actually defensive coaching overall. I'm talking about Dan Quinn, the head coach, who of course has a defensive background, the new defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., who I am a big believer in with their use of multiple fronts, stunts in games, rotating coverages, all this stuff that they did with the Dallas Cowboys over these last several years. They're going to be bringing it here to Washington. And even though, maybe the cornerback situation isn't all that great and maybe the defensive line could still use a couple of pieces, I think that this defense is really going to punch above its weight, and it's going to be at least league average this year, which is going to be a huge step up from where this team was last year under Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. Now, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. What will be Washington's biggest strength this year? This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So whenever YouTube throws you an ad break here, it should be in just a couple of seconds. Go down there, find that pinned comment. It's right there at the top of the comment section, and answer today's pinned question. When it comes to the biggest weakness, ESPN thinks it is edge rusher. As we see, I believe that's Dorrance Armstrong right there for the Washington Commanders signing his contract. This is what Mike Clay had to say about the Commanders on the edge. Edge rusher is in transition after the team traded away Montez Sweat and Chase Young last season. Newcomers Dorrance Armstrong, Clelin Ferrell, and Dante Fowler Jr. topped the depth chart after none cleared 452 snaps in 2023. This unit will require contributions from the versatile Louvu and perhaps Davis, talking about Jamin Davis there. And I think that they fundamentally, or Mike Clay fundamentally doesn't understand what the Commanders are doing with Jamin Davis this year. He's essentially going to be an edge rusher. He's going to be playing kind of that Micah Parsons hybrid linebacker edge rusher role in almost like a 3-4 style of defense. Now, Dan Quinn traditionally runs a 4-3, going back to his days there with the Seattle team, the Legion of Boom. So many people think, including Mike Clay, that he still runs a traditional 4-3. But if you watch any Dallas Cowboy film over the last several seasons, they almost run like a 3-4 style of defense where they have a hybrid linebacker that can go out into coverage or rush the passer. That's going to be Jamin Davis this year. So, I mean, Mike Clay lists Jamin as a part of the inside linebacking core. I disagree with that. I think he's going to be more of like an outside linebacker that rushes the passer more often than not. So I think that he's going to be more of an edge rusher for this team this year, and I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding that Mike Clay is bringing to the table here. My biggest weakness on this team, you guys know it if you've watched the show, it's the offensive line. Just like last year. Last year I was saying, guys, like Chris Paul, and Sadiq Charles is just not going to cut it at left guard. And, I didn't love the tackle situation last year either. And people were like, Jack, you're being too pessimistic. This team's going to be awesome. Sam Howell's going to be incredible. Well, the offensive line was probably the second worst in football last year. Sam Cosmi was great at right guard. It's great that you got him back. Tyler Biadasz is, I think, a very solid center. But the other three spots, like Andrew Wylie gave up 9 sacks last year. Nick Allegretti and Cornelius Lucas have never been full-time starters. That's your entire left side of your offensive line. Neither one of them is an established starter in this league, and they're going to be protecting Jayden Daniels' blind side. So on paper here, this is one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. I hope that at least a couple of these guys raise above expectations. I hope Cornelius Lucas plays better than what his former stats would suggest. I hope Nick Allegretti plays just as well as he did with the Chiefs on their playoff run last year. I hope all these things happen. But on paper, this has got to be one of the worst units in the NFL, and that's not good considering that you have a rookie quarterback back there who is a little bit spindly. Now, I will say Daniels has filled out a little bit here, but you got to really hope that Jayden Daniels can stay healthy behind this offensive line this year. I think it is the Commanders' biggest weakness, or at least it is on paper heading into the year, and I'm really hoping that at least a couple of pieces on this offensive line can prove me wrong so that Jayden Daniels can stay upright next year. Now, still to come here on the Commanders Report, shocking starting lineup projection for ESPN here that I completely disagree with. I'll let you guys know the parts I disagree with here in just a second. But before we get into that, rock the Dan Quinn look during game days this year for the Washington Commanders. And you can do that right now by getting a very affordable, stylish Washington Commanders ball cap from our friends at Fanatics right now. Go to chatsports.com/DQ to get this very stylish Commanders ball cap today. And also, guys, if you want to help out the channel, this is a great opportunity to do so, because if you use our link, chatsports.com/DQ, and then you make a purchase, Fanatics is going to send us part of the proceeds. So we really do appreciate your guys' support. So if you want a new ball cap, you want to rock that Dan Quinn look this year, and you want to help out the channel, go to chatsports.com/DQ. All right, now we get to ESPN's X Factor, and they think it's going to be the starting cornerbacks for the Washington Commanders here. This is what Mike Clay from ESPN has to say about the outside cornerback situation here in Washington. Cornerbacks Benjamin St-Juste and Emmanuel Forbes Jr. last season, no outside corner surrendered more yards to opponents than St-Juste per NFL Next Gen Stats. And Forbes allowed 2.4 yards per coverage snap, the second most by an outside corner with at least 250 coverage snaps. So listen, man, neither of these guys have been particularly great last season. Now it's a different scheme. It's going to be a much different mentality. Maybe, Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn, who have a history of turning around some of these cornerbacks in the past. Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs didn't have the best starts to their career. They revived Stephon Gilmore's career last year. They've done a really good job with these outside cornerbacks in the past. You've got to hope that they can do the same with Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste this year, but it's definitely a question mark heading into the season. My X factor here, I think it's going to be Jayden Daniels, guys, because I think if Jayden Daniels has a Rookie of the Year type season and he comes anywhere close to the production that C.J. Stroud put out last year, I think the defense will be good enough where this will be a pretty balanced football team. Now, because he's playing behind a bad offensive line, it's going to be, it's definitely, we still have to see Jayden Daniels, play well in an actual NFL football game. But everything that we've seen from Jayden through OTAs tells me that he's an absolute stud. And if he has a Rookie of the Year type campaign, I think that's going to bring some nice balance to this football club. And then when you add the culture that Dan Quinn is bringing here, I think it could be something where you could have an outside chance at a playoff spot here in 2024. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon here if you're pumped to watch Jayden Daniels play football in the burgundy and gold. I know I am. We're going to be having watch parties here on YouTube, 100% free, where we're going to have this community come together to watch this rookie quarterback ball out. So if you're ready to watch Jayden Daniels, number 5 in burgundy, rock out this year, make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now. So now I've been alluding to it since the beginning of the show here. This surprising ESPN starting lineup projection. And most of the surprising things in the disagreements I have are on the defensive side of the ball. So let's start with the offense here. Well, there's not a whole lot of disagreement here. I mean, Jayden Daniels projected to be the Week 1 starter. I agree with that. Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Ekeler will start this season as the first 2 running backs. Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, definitely going to be number 1 and number 2 receiver. The only disagreement I have, though, is that they have Luke McCaffrey listed as the number 2 or number 3 receiver. I actually think it's going to be Dyami Brown. There's going to be a competition for that number 3 spot. Olamide Zaccheaus, Dyami Brown, Luke McCaffrey. There's going to be a lot of guys in contention for that number 3 wide receiver spot. But Dyami Brown and Jayden Daniels had a really nice connection in OTAs. I have a feeling that's going to translate over into training camp in preseason. And I think by Week 1, Dyami Brown is going to be the number 3 receiver. Then for the big guys on offense, no disagreements from me here, guys. We got Zach Ertz at tight end. Ben Simmons going to be his backup this year, most likely. Cornelius Lucas will start at left tackle. Do think that will be the case. Nick Allegretti at left guard. Tyler Biadasz at center. And then Sam Cosmi at right guard, and then Andrew Wylie at right tackle. I definitely think that's probably the way it will play out in Week 1. But where ESPN goes wrong here is I think that Mike Clay's fundamental misunderstanding of how this defense is going to be aligned definitely messes things up here. And I just think from how I think it's going to go, I just don't think it's really lined up with reality. The problem is he kind of lays this thing out as if it's a traditional 4-3 defense when there's nothing really traditional about the way Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn want to run this style of defense. So right now, Mike Clay, this is who he has as the projected starters. Dorrance Armstrong will be the number 1 edge. Clelin Ferrell will be the second edge. And then you get Jonathan Allen and then Daron Payne as your 2 defensive tackles. Then at linebacker, he has Bobby Wagner as the number 1, Frankie Luvu is the number 2, and then Jamin Davis as the number 3. But like we talked about earlier, Jamin Davis is going to be more of an edge rusher. We'll get into that here in just a second. And then in the secondary, he has Emmanuel Forbes as the number 1, Benjamin St-Juste as the number 2, Quan Martin as the starting slot corner, not Mike Sainristil. And then he's got Derek Forrest at free safety with Jeremy Chin playing the strong safety position. And, 3 guys that I think are probably going to be starters that ESPN's Mike Clay does not list on this depth chart. Mike Sainristil, who I think might be the best overall corner on this team, not listed as a starter. That's ridiculous to me. Johnny Newton, if he's healthy and good to go, he should be getting more snaps than Clelin Ferrell. He's way more talented than him. And I definitely think Newton is going to get on the field and quickly for this football team. Then Michael Davis, they brought him in free agency. They clearly like him. I'm not the biggest Michael Davis fan in the world, but it's clear that the Commanders believe in this guy and think that they can turn his career around. So listen, man, I don't think this is how the defense is going to look. I think it's going to be a lot more multiple than the way that they're kind of breaking things down. And I think that the defensive line in particular is going to look in a different way than people are kind of expecting. I think they're going to run more of a 3-4 front here, where you're going to have Jamin Davis, who is going to be on the field as a linebacker, but it's going to be more of a hybrid linebacker, somebody that comes across all around the formation. He moves all around. He's blitzing on almost every single play. Yes, he goes out into coverage at times, but he's going to be playing on the line of scrimmage. Dorrance Armstrong and then Johnny Newton, who's kind of an undersized defensive tackle, would be perfect for that 5 technique role, that 3-4 defensive end spot. Then you get Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, who are great in those 3 technique and 1 technique roles. I think that this configuration works a lot better than that traditional 4-3 that Mike Clay lays out. Then we get to the linebackers. Frankie Luvu, Bobby Wagner will be the more traditional guys. And then in your nickel formations and in your dime packages, Jeremy Chin's going to be rotating down as kind of like a bandit linebacker type. He's a big, strong safety. He's really good in coverage as a linebacker, and Bobby Wagner isn't. So in those situations where it's obvious pass situations, I think Wagner comes off the field and Jeremy Chin comes in for coverage. And then at the cornerback position, Mike Sainristil starting at slot corner, guys. It's not going to be Quan Martin. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I do think Michael Davis probably beats out Benjamin St-Juste. That spot's going to be an interesting battle in training camp, but Emmanuel Forbes probably most likely going to be the number 1 corner for this team to start the year. Then you get Derek Forrest as your free safety, and then Jeremy Chin in your base formations when you only have 2 safeties on the field. Chin will be the strong safety, And then when you have Chin in as kind of a coverage linebacker, that's when Quan Martin will come in to play the other safety position. So listen, man, it's a lot. It's very versatile. It's very multiple. And I think to just pigeonhole this and kind of be so cookie cutter with your 4-3 defense there, I just think it doesn't do this defense justice. So fill in the blank for me down there in the comments section. The Commanders will have a top blank defense in 2024. Will they have top 15, top 10, top 5? Let me know down there in the comments section. How good is this Commanders defense going to be next season? Thank you guys so much for sticking with me here to the end of today's show. I know it was a little bit of a longer one. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more Commanders news and rumors coverage all throughout the 2024 offseason.